Is it shalom? President Putin just made a speech today, well, on the 15th. We're going to see what he says. Don't know Russian? Don't worry, we're going to translate it for you. And it's juicy. Is it shalom? Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed foreign guests, let me welcome you to the anniversary of the 10th Moscow Conference on International Security, keyword. Over the past decade, your representative forum has become a significant venue for discussing the most pressing military political problems. Today, such an open discussion is particularly pertinent. The situation in the world is changing dynamically, and the outlines of a multipolar world order are taking shape. An increasing number of countries and peoples are choosing a path of free and sovereign development based on their own distinct identity, traditions, and values. These objective processes are being opposed by the Western globalist elites who provoke chaos, fanning long-standing and new conflicts and pursuing the so-called containment policy, which in fact amounts to the subversion of any alternative sovereign development options. Thus, they are doing all they can to keep hold on the hegemony and power that are slipping from their hands. They are attempting to retain countries and peoples in the grip of what is essentially a neo-colonial order. Their hegemony means stagnation for the rest of the world and for the entire civilization. It means obscurantism, cancellation of culture, and neoliberal totalitarianism. They are using all expedients. The United States and its vassals grossly interfere in the internal affairs of sovereign states by staging provocations, organizing coups, or inciting civil wars. By threats, blackmail, and pressure, they are trying to force independent states to submit to their will and follow rules that are alien to them. This is being done with just one aim in view, which is to preserve their domination. The centuries-old model that enables them to sponge on everything in the world. But a model of this sort can only be retained by force. This is why the collective West, the so-called collective West, is deliberately undermining the European security system and knocking together ever new military alliances. NATO is crawling east and building up its military infrastructure. Among other things, it is deploying missile defense systems and enhancing the strike capabilities of its offensive forces. This is hypocritically attributed to the need to strengthen security in Europe, but in fact, quite the opposite is taking place. Moreover, the proposals on mutual security measures, which Russia put forward last December, were once again disregarded. They need conflict to retain their hegemony. It is for this reason that they have destined the Ukrainian people to being used as cannon fodder. They have implemented the anti-Russia project and connived at the dissemination of the neo-Nazi ideology. They looked the other way when residents of Donbass were killed in their thousands and continue to pour weapons, including heavy weapons, for use by the Kiev regime, something that they persist in doing now. Under these circumstances, we have taken the decision to conduct a special military operation in Ukraine, a decision which is in full conformity with the Charter of the United Nations. It has been clearly spelled out that the aims of this operation are to ensure the security of Russia and its citizens and protect the residents of Donbass from genocide. The situation in Ukraine shows that the United States is attempting to draw out this conflict. It acts as the same way elsewhere, fomenting the conflict potential in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. As is common knowledge, the U.S. has recently made another deliberate attempt to fuel the flames and stir up trouble in the Asia Pacific. The U.S. escapade towards Taiwan is not just a voyage by an irresponsible politician, but part of the purpose-oriented and deliberate U.S. strategy designed to destabilize the situation and sow chaos in the region and the world. It is a brazen demonstration of disrespect for other countries and their own international commitments. We regard this as a thoroughly planned provocation. It is clear that by taking these actions, the Western globalist elites are attempting, among other things, to divert the attention of their own citizens from pressing socioeconomic problems, such as plummeting living standards, unemployment, poverty, and deindustrialization.
They want across the country, a legacy of the Housing Act of 1949, which ordered slums cleared and replaced with modern buildings that would meet the goal of a decent home and a suitable living environment for every American family. Robert Taylor Homes was the largest, most ambitious housing project in the world. $75 million, 28 buildings, 16 stories high, 4,415 apartments stretching over 95 acres. The opening ceremony was a celebration of pride. The first families moved in with high expectations. Now, 24 years later, the reality is very different from the concept.
It's really not safe here, you know. And I used to always say all the time when I used to see on TV before I moved in the project that I would never move in the project. But the other buildings where we stayed at, they got condemned, the water was cut off, we didn't have no way to flush the toilet. We had to borrow water from other people that, you know, homeowners. And the people got tired of, you know, giving us water. And the lady from the Urban Progress Center came out and asked us what we'd like to move. And we told her, yeah, so that's when we got a chance to move in CHA.
3 generations of the Nash family, 15 people, live in this 6-room apartment on the 5th floor.
I really want to move away from my mother because I know my mother tired of us living with her. I know my mother want to be home, be on her own. I've been trying ever since my little girl was 1 and she's 7, she'll be 8 in August.
Gloria, angel to her family, and her sister Sheila have asked the Chicago Housing Authority for apartments so that they and their children can move out.
If you get burnt out, they'll probably give you another apartment or something like that. But you know, like, it's too many people in this apartment.
Having the grandchildren underfoot aggravates her high blood pressure.
But my nerves sometimes it be more worse like than the other time. You know, with all this pressure on me and everything. See, you know, like the doctor give me like Libra, whatever you call it. And they have gave me like the yellow nerve pill, they call them Valium 10. All different kind of medicine. And some of it I don't even know what it's for and I don't even take it.
People living on top of one another, and there's always a lot of chaos. There's always a high tension growing.
Dwight is the eldest of the Nash sons who grew up here.
It's not safe for a family of 4 or even 2, for that matter, to be living in Robert Taylor because anything is subject to happen. Sometimes the elevators don't work. Sometimes the emergency squad can't get in time enough to save one's life.
Although their fathers now have jobs. Hiawatha Nash, age 33, receives aid to the blind, aged, and disabled because of her crippling birth defect. So that's Mrs. Nash, 11 children, and 26 grandchildren. We're spending $3,965 a month cash to sustain the 38 members of the Nash family.
They want to shift the blame for their own failures to other countries, namely Russia and China, which are defending their point of view and designing a sovereign development policy without submitting to the diktat of the supranational elites. We also see that the collective West is striving to expand its bloc-based system to the Asia-Pacific region, like it did with NATO in Europe. To this end, they are creating aggressive military political unions such as AUKUS and others, and I can only imagine that it stands for Australia, Korea, United States. Might be my ignorance. It is obvious that it is only possible to reduce tension in the world, overcoming military, political threats and risks, improve trust between countries, and ensure their sustainable development through a radical strengthening of the contemporary system of a multipolar world. I reiterate that the era of the unipolar world is becoming a thing of the past. No matter how strongly the beneficiaries of the current globalist model cling to the familiar state of affairs, it is doomed. The historic geopolitical changes are going in a totally different direction. And of course, your conference is another important proof of the objective processes forming a multipolar world, bringing together representatives from many countries who want to discuss security issues on an equal footing and conduct a dialogue that takes into account the interests of all parties without exception. I want to emphasize that the multipolar world based on international law and more just relations opens up new opportunities for counteracting common threats such as regional conflicts and the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, terrorism, and cybercrime. All these challenges are global, and therefore it will be impossible to overcome them without combining the efforts and potentials of all states. As before, Russia will actively and assertively participate in such coordinated joint efforts together with its allies, partners, and fellow thinkers. It will improve the existing mechanisms of international security and create new ones, as well as consistently strengthen the national armed forces and other security structures by providing them with advanced weapons and military equipment. Russia will secure its national interests as well as the protection of its allies and take other steps towards building of a more democratic world where the rights of all peoples and cultural and civilizational diversity are guaranteed. We need to restore respect for international law, for its fundamental norms and principles. And of course, it is important to promote such universal and commonly acknowledged agencies as the United Nations and other international dialogue platforms, the UN Security Council and the General Assembly, as it was intended initially, are supposed to serve as effective tools to reduce international tensions and prevent conflicts, as well as facilitate the provision of reliable security and well-being of countries and peoples. In conclusion, I want to thank the conference organizers for their major, they got me speaking Russian, for real, for their major preparatory work, and I wish all participants substantial discussions. I am sure that the forum will continue to make a significant contribution to the strengthening of peace and stability on our planet and facilitate the development of constructive dialogue and partnership. Thank you for your attention. Wow. And if you go on YouTube, you will not see this, you will not hear this, and they will cut out the parts. If it is an ally of the European nations, they will, their newsroom, including We On, The World Is One, they will cut out the good parts, especially here to here. Alright, cause this whole thing, wow. Foreign policy, national security, armed forces. So let me have that as a keyword. Read it yourself, listen